Quick question. Do you know the difference between a personal brand and a leadership brand? Most people don't, and it actually matters. Now, your personal brand is what people think about you. Your leadership brand, though, that's about the impact that you create. It's how you lead, it's how you think, it's your philosophy, the change that you're making visible in the world. I have a gift for you because each week I teach an absolutely free class called the Leadership Brand Class, where I walk you through our leadership brand methodology. We help you close the gap between the impact that you are already making in your career and your business and how visible that impact actually is. Because here's the truth. Visibility without substance is just noise. But impact without visibility, that's a missed opportunity. And most leaders that we work with are on the wrong side of that equation. So join me at leadershipbrandclass.com. It's free, it's every week, and it will change how you think about your leadership and how others think about you so that you're compensated for the impact that you actually create.
I'm an expert at maybe 3 or 4 things. I'm not an expert at being black and having the voice of all black people. Look around the boardroom table and see who speaks first after the most powerful person sitting at the table. See who disagrees with the person. If you're able to disagree with the person who's in control, that means that leader trusts you and respects you enough to disagree. Don't speak unless it improves the silence. You can be interested in a million things, narrow it down to 3. 3 things. How many hours does it take you to become an expert? Is it
10,000 hours.
You don't have 10,000 hours for
10 things.
Right. Do exactly what you said you were going to do because your reputation matters.
Welcome to the Let's Thrive Together podcast, where we are sharing real stories of real leaders thriving not only in their career in business, but also in your life. I'm your host, Brittany N, keynote speaker, author of Thrive Through It, and the CEO of Career Thrivers, where we work with executives and organizations to build bold leaders and resilient teams. Well, welcome back to the show. I'm so excited to have Alfred joining us today. And let's just get right into the conversation, Alfred.
Perfect.
So let's talk about, I'm curious about like your first leadership role. Like when was the first time that you were either voluntold or you volunteered to lead something?
Wow, that's a tough question, but I guess I'll take it from a 2-pronged approach. So growing up in the church, being very active, I was voluntold to do a lot of things inside the church in terms of you're going to be usher today, or you're going to welcome the guests, you're going to lead the scripture, or you're going to lead the prayer, or you're going to organize something to help the community. So I saw that in a lot of younger years. I fast forward, the second prong is high school when I was, I just was a pretty good student. So my colleagues and classmates were like, we think you ought to run for class president. And I'm like, I don't have any interest in doing that. I'm not that person. I just want to get my schoolwork done so I can go and play sports after school, go play my, game system, whatever it was at the time. And they were like, no, we really think that you should be our class president. And I'm like, well, why? Well, you have good grades. I said, well, I have good grades because my parents don't play.
Yeah.
I can't come home with bad grades. So I usually tell the story where I always consider myself the accidental leader. Like I didn't think that I should be the leader. I thought it was a lot of people that had better leadership qualities than I had, but they'd say, we think you'd be a good person to do this. So a lot of people thought I would be a good representative of the whole class. And from that point, I just kind of took that as my own, where I kept, and I was a little more intentional about volunteering to lead on certain things. And even when I didn't think I had the capacity to lead, I had people that would continue to say, hey, you would be great for this.
Yeah. I love that. It sounds like we were raised in the same home almost because I definitely remember those voluntold moments at church. And Let's Thrive Together is actually, it's a podcast. It's a prayer call as well that we do on Sunday evenings. And then it's weekly inspiration for leaders. So really speaking holistically to the leader. And so I'm curious, like reflecting on those early moments. I mean, I can remember like elementary school, like having to go up in front of the church. Do you believe like some of those leadership qualities are more like innate, or are they cultivated through moments like that where you're young and you just get that experience of getting to represent people or knowing how to communicate in a compelling way and other skills like that?
Well, I think that's maybe a both and. I kind of feel like the nature versus nurture dichotomy. Are you who you are because of your DNA or because of the people who poured into you? And I think it's a little bit of both.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me personally, I think that being raised in a household, my father was a Vietnam veteran, very strict household, do as I say, not as you please. These are the parameters. You get it done whatever way you want to get it done, but get it done and get it done right the first time. So I think it was drilled in my mind that you're a leader, not a follower. And I don't know if I agree with that description 100%.
Yeah.
Because you have to be able to follow in order to lead. But I don't take the same approach with my children like you. Have to be a leader, not a follower. But I've seen in both of my kids, like my son has run for class president, not because I urged him to do it, but I was very excited when he was like, I want to run for class rep or class president.
That.
And he's been unsuccessful twice, but he's advanced to the final round. And then, when they narrowed it down to 3-1, he's never made it. But say, how you feel about that? He was like, I feel great. I just wanted to try. I didn't make it, so I'm gonna try again next year.
Aww.
So I mean, that's a lot different than how I was raised. I don't think that I would have been as easy to accept defeat. But I like that quality. Maybe I would have said I'm not gonna run again, but I've never really had opposition to anything until people say, hey, I got to college and ran for student government, and that's the first time I lost anything. And it was devastating. I was like, how did I lose this race? And but that helped me, and we'll talk about this later, but it helped my mindset in working in politics. I believe there's a direct correlation between being told in middle school, high school, we want you to be class president, to, okay, I think I can lead. I'm a leader now. Now, when the opportunity presents itself, do I put myself in a position where I want to lead if I think I can do a good job? Because also leading is knowing whether you can perform or not. Because everybody's depending on you to do things for them. And I have examples of that. And, just a few examples where sometimes I hadn't made the best decision, even though the people were saying, this is what we want to do.
Oh, okay. So I have so many follow-up questions. So I definitely want to tap into the mindset piece, because that's one of the many things I admire about you. I think that not only is it evident, but like you speak about the importance of it. And I'm not sure that the mindset of a leader is talked about enough, particularly with you. I know that you've led across state government, higher education, community leadership as well. So talk a little bit about the mindset that's required, especially to lead across different industries, different sectors, while still remaining authentic to who you are, which we can talk about, the trend of authenticity in leadership as well. But what does that look like for you? If I asked you right now, on a scale from 1 to 10, how strong is your leadership brand? Most people would just guess, but you don't have to. We've created the Leadership Brand Assessment to give you an actual score on where you stand, your impact, your visibility, and the gap between those two. Because that gap, the distance between what you've built and what the world actually sees, that's where your influence is hiding, and that's where your income is hiding too. That's where your next opportunity is waiting. And it only takes 3 minutes. It's absolutely free, and it'll tell you exactly where to focus next. So take the assessment now at scoremyleadershipbrand.com.
Well, you definitely have to be an authentic leader. People can sniff it out if you're not. If you're being somebody who you're not, people can pick up on that. So I think about where I grew up. I grew up in North Memphis, and even to this day, in one of the, I think it's 620 zip codes in the state, and mine is in the bottom 10 in the state. But my parents taught me, you're not defined by your zip code. You might be from here, but that's not going to define the rest of your life. If you work hard, things will follow. If you do good, good will follow you. So the mindset for me is, I grew up with a lot of lack, not lack in love or my faith or things like that, but financial, looking around the neighborhood and seeing blighted properties, seeing people doing illegal things, seeing, just experiencing things that maybe people that young shouldn't see. But I let that drive who I am. I never forget where I come from, because people will say to me, how'd you figure that out? How do you know that to be true? The same way you know it to be true. I have enough confidence to be able to say, all right, I understand people. Pretty bright person, at least I think I'm bright at times, but I don't think I'm the smartest person in the room. And I can learn from anybody. People who have a mindset that I'm the smartest in the room, it's nothing you can teach me, those are the ones who tend to fall pretty hard. I'm more of a collaborator, so I like to bring people to the table, and I like to get brilliant minds together to figure things out, particularly tough solutions. I'm kind of wired to be focused on what's the hardest thing. I don't want to deal with the easy stuff. Give me a hard problem and I'll solve it. And then I'll say this final piece too. Leadership is I say this to people as I travel across the state, across the country. There's a moral and ethical obligation to leadership. You know, people are depending on you to do the right thing. And that doesn't mean it's always going to be easy. But a lot of times people will not raise their hand and say, I want to step up and lead. Like, you can ask people today, do you want to run for mayor? Do you want to run for Congress? And the people who should run will all say no, because it's too much of a sacrifice. I don't want to be in the spotlight, my children, my career. Because when you do things like that, it always impacts your pockets, because you're spending so much time doing the work of the people that you're not spending enough time focusing on your earning years or things of that nature.
Sure.
And then it's always a conflict of interest. So you might be a legislator or a city council member or county commissioner, and something that your business deals with comes up before you have to recuse yourself. That could have been an opportunity if you weren't in that position to make money, but now you can't make money because you be in a position. So I think you have to weigh those options, but also understand that, you know, everybody has their lane. Like, my ministry is to be the person behind the person. I don't have to be the person in the front, but I can advise, I can give good ideas, and I can really say, are we really looking at this with our third eye? Like, are you thinking about the next step? Like, I've been playing chess since I was 5. My uncle in New York is one of those professional chess players that goes to Central Park and they do it. So he taught me how to play chess a long time ago. So my mind is always focused on the 5th move, not the first one. And see, in politics, that served me very well, because you always got to be thinking about what's next.
Sure.
But at some point, you can't always be thinking about 5, 6 moves down the road. You got to be present in the now, because if that solid foundation isn't laid, you're not going to be able to build a house or the structure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mentioned authenticity kind of with air quotes, because I know we often try to teach in frameworks and things like that, having agility in your authenticity, particularly as it relates to like the intergenerational dynamic of leadership, because oftentimes, you know, entry level emerging leaders sometimes have this approach that like, my authenticity is fixed. So anything that, you know, bumps up against who I think I am in this moment, if I have to be flexible, I'm not being authentic. And talking with a leader like you who is in different spaces, how do you navigate that when it comes to being in different spaces? Sure, you might be values aligned, but the approach might not be always what you would decide. How do you flex that agility to still stay true to who you are, but serve the mission with the different hats that you wear?
Well, so my mom taught kindergarten for 35 years, and I'm no stranger to reading to kids. And Dr. Seuss, in one of his books, says, nobody is youer than you. You have to be authentic to who you are. When people come and they ask me to do volunteer service or to help with something, I always ask a few questions. What's the time commitment? Is there a financial responsibility, and is there a raised responsibility? Like, I like to know, give me the full dynamic before I help with something, because I don't have a lot of time to do every single thing. But I'm very specific and direct with people when I say a few things. In the last 10 years, I would say, are you trying to fill a quota? Because if you're just trying to get me on the board or something, or to help with this thing because I'm Black and authentically Black, I'm not doing it. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not trying to be in a position where you're like, oh, we need one person.
Yeah.
The other thing is you have to be direct with people too, because I've found myself in situations where I'm invited to the table and they say, well, give me your perspective as a Black person. I want you to like explain how Black people think. And I say, wait a second, you know, I can't give you that perspective. I'm an expert at maybe 3 or 4 things. I'm not an expert at being Black and having the voice of all Black people, right. But I understand people and I love people, and I think I have a reasonable understanding, a reasonable standard where I can say, this doesn't pass the smell test, or this does pass the smell test. And we ought to be careful, because if you're thinking, like I said about the chess example, sometimes you make a decision and there are unintended consequences, and then you have to roll things back. I'm just equipped, and my mind is designed to say, all right, let's think this thing through to its logical conclusion so we don't have to roll anything back. Let's make sure we have the right people there. And if you're not authentic, here's a good example. Maybe this is better. I had a boss one time in higher ed, really respected this boss. And he said to me, he said, you know what, Alfred, I didn't hire you because you're pretty. I didn't hire you because you wear nice suits. I hired you because of your brain. I see that you're in these meetings and you're not speaking up when I know you have something to say. And I say, well, wait a second. I'm sitting in the room with, you know, vice chancellors and provosts and, you know, economists and people who are, in my mind, much smarter than I am, but they may not be as smart as I am in the lane that I'm designed to lead.
Yeah.
And if you don't say something where you're supposed to say it, then you miss your opportunity to lead.
How do you know when the time is right? And how do you prepare your mind for high stakes conversations? Because I would say probably top 3 skills for leaders, especially in this current climate, is being able to communicate. You know, it's not just knowing what to say, but how to say it, how to be flexible in how you say it, depending on who you're saying it to. So like, how do you prepare your mindset for those kinds of conversations?
Well, you have to listen to understand.
Yep.
So like, if you're not listening, so you'll be in a position where people are talking and you may not know what the conversation is about. But if you listen intently, you, like a lot of times you can follow money, for instance, and see if there's a movement or something that could move money around, then sometimes there's a reason why the conversation is over here, because that money can flow a different direction. And you have to, like, I think that I go back to my childhood and I think about the things that I did not have. Doesn't mean that I'm grateful every single day that I grew up in the place where a lot of times the answer was no. And it really wasn't an explanation. I'm an 80s baby, so like parents didn't explain things
at all.
You know, back when I was coming up, it was kind of like, you know, because we're not doing it. And don't ask me again.
Because I said so. That's
okay,
it.
Right. So I try not to do because I said so, but it's so easy to end a conversation when you want to. Yes, small children.
That's a bold period.
Right. But my point is this right here. Understanding that you know that if you're going to get something, you have to go get it on your own, and you have to work hard for it is a valuable lesson as a child. So when I'm in the room and knowing when to speak up or not to speak up, because really power, I love power dynamics, and I've been to enough boardroom tables to understand how power works. You can understand power by, and I've worked for a lot of elected officials, so I get it. Governor walks in, everybody stands up. You know, mayor walks in, everybody claps, right? Congressman walks in, everybody. So I get those power dynamics, and I've sat in thousands of meetings with these high-ranking elected officials. Look around the boardroom table and see who speaks first after the most powerful person sitting at the table. That's one thing. See who disagrees with the person, right? Mm-hmm. If you're able to disagree with the person who's in control, that means that leader trusts you and respects you enough to disagree. And look at the people who sit quietly, but then they maneuver at the end to go and kind of explain and like explain what happened during the meeting. So like, it's a lot of things going on in meetings when you're sitting at tables that you may not understand, but I don't miss a move. I like to watch And sometimes I'll sit and listen and wait to see if somebody's going to say something that hasn't been said. And then that's usually when I use my my gift to say, well, one thing that wasn't discussed that we may want to consider is this. And on that framework, we may ought to consider these next two things. So I think it's a way to do it without, I think a lot of people don't speak up for fear of disrespecting someone or disagreeing, but a lot of times people will say, fail fast. Yeah. Don't wait to fail. Go ahead and knock it out right now and then move on to the next thing. So you have to be honest if you want real results. It's one thing to play the game and just go through the motions, but if you really want to see change, and I'm an improvement science guy, I'm an implementation science guy, just because you make a change does not mean it's an improvement. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you make a change and it's a lot worse, and then you have to go through the plan, do, study, act cycle, and then say, okay, let's go back and start over. And then we keep it going, because continuous improvement is something that I think governments need, businesses need, nonprofits need. Everybody needs to always look and say, I'm not perfect. What can we be doing better? And that's why you have to speak up.
Yeah. What would you say to the person that is sitting in the boardroom? Maybe they're more of an emerging leader and they have that fear. They're wondering, like, is this the right thing to say? They're concerned about how to say it so that it lands. There might even be, people love to talk about imposter syndrome. There may even be some of that going on. What would you say to that person about sometimes overthinking? And I often find as identities intersect, oftentimes the case of that is higher, where it's like the woman in the room who might be the only one at the board table or one of a few is waiting for the right time. And then, oh my gosh, the meeting's over. It said nothing the whole meeting.
Right, or the woman says something and then nobody listens. Then the man says something, the exact same thing.
Oh my gosh.
And oh my God, that's the best piece of advice I've heard all day. I think what you have to do, if you're an emerging leader or emerging person at the table, you have to basically look around and see who do you admire at the table, and then ask them to be a mentor. Watch them. I always try to look around and see who's the most impressive person, who has the best thought processes, who's able to really tell a story, because storytelling is so important. If you can tell a story, you can change the world. Think about Dr. King and how he told stories. Think about all these other leaders. Think about Eleanor Roosevelt. Think about people who could go and get things done for humanity. You tell stories. So people who are gifted with being able to tell a story are always fascinating to me. I love when I see people who can captivate a room. And you'll see that around the boardroom table, and you can pick up qualities as you go to more of them. Don't be afraid. Like, don't walk in and think you're going to be the chief. That's one thing that I think younger generations might have to deal with. I mean, I've managed a lot of people from boomers on down, and I call myself a geriatric millennial because I'm on the front end of the millennial spectrum. And I don't think we're built the same way as people at the bottom, right? But we are that microwave generation. We want things quickly, but if you really take time to do something, you're going to appreciate it a lot more. So take the time to take notes. Like, I always take notes at every meeting I go to. Take the time to be thoughtful, have quotes, add value to the conversation, don't take away. If it's not additive, don't say anything. You're best just taking notes. But like, one of my favorite things from, I think it was Hardball, one of the political Bibles by Chris Matthews, said, don't speak unless it improves the silence. So, like, I don't like silence. So if I'm sitting in a meeting and people are just, thinking, I'm like, well, wait a second. Okay, let's try to get something going. That doesn't mean that I have to be the one that comes up with the solution, but like, sitting there quiet is not going to get us to the solution. Let's start where we can and see if it can go somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're sitting in Nashville. I'm a Nashville native. You've been in Nashville for a while. You lead Leadership Tennessee, so you see leaders across the state. I'm curious about so many things relative to leadership locally, but what would you say are some of the strengths as you think about leaders in Nashville, and then some of the opportunities, maybe some of the gaps that you see? You're listening in to the Let's Thrive Together podcast powered by Career Thrivers. Career Thrivers is a workforce development and leadership branding firm where we work directly with organizations, helping you with your organizational development strategy, but also your learning and development as you are building your next level leaders. If you are looking to retain top talent, inspire your leaders, or cultivate the leadership brands as executives within your organization, then make sure you head on over to careerthrivers.com to learn more about how you can work with us.
I think the strengths that I see here in Nashville are related to just not topography, but just the geography of where Nashville sits. This is the economic hub of the state. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're fortunate in Nashville to have the state capitol here, which hadn't always been here. I'm not going to get into this historical thing, but we've had at least 4 capitals, and Nashville is the 4th. It started out east before, and I think Murfreesboro, believe it or not, was a state capital for a little bit, and then it came to Nashville, but they wouldn't build a Capitol building. So folks in Nashville said, we'll build it, and that's why the Capitol building is here. So having access to just the infrastructure, the healthcare, the colleges and universities, the people here. I mean, Nashville today is different than it was 23 years ago when I moved here. I kind of miss the old Nashville. You can get anywhere in 20 minutes. You didn't have to pay for parking. I mean, like those are like.
You sound like a native.
Right.
You kind of sounded like a native.
I've been here for a while.
I remember when.
What
is all this
in front of
newness?
the Metro Courthouse before they were building a parking lot, and it was always free parking downtown. And now you can't find that. But I think Nashville's much better now, but we've seen growth. Mm-hmm. So like the Metro Council, in my opinion, the consolidation of government was vital for Nashville's success. The first city-county governments to come together as one happened here in Nashville. So the duplication of services don't exist. I'm from Memphis. We have city government, we have state government. City and county government. Mm-hmm. And they have a lot of services that are duplicated. So all the cities that have tried it were not successful. And what's unique about Nashville, it wasn't the city saying, we're telling you, county, to do this, or the county saying, we're telling you to do this. It was both of them coming together. And I think the size of the council is great. I lobbied the Metro Council before, representing a very big client. And I think the successes really come from the fact that we've had a large Metro Council. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't think Nashville would be what it is if we didn't have the systems in place, and that's been a part of it. So it's a possibility the council will reduce to half the size, and that could open up a can of worms or not. Like, we have a very strong mayor system here in Nashville, which means that the mayor has a lot of power. The Metro Council is basically responsible for zoning and the budget. That's a lot of power too. But some cities, the county commission has more power than the mayor. Sometimes the city council has more power than the mayor, which means that they do more visioning for their cities and counties than the mayor does. But what we have here is a system where the mayor can really cast their vision broadly and say, this is what I want Nashville to be in 20 years. And I think Governor Bredesen, was probably one of the best to do it, to envision what Nashville could be by bringing professional sports, by getting Bridgestone Arena, by changing 2nd Avenue from the focal point of the city to Broadway. I mean, he was the one who really started that piece and really getting the community engaged in what the next Nashville should look like. So having visionary leaders has been great. And I think to continue with the question, a lot of mayors across the state point to that. They point to what Nashville was and how it's gotten to where it is. And the leadership is extremely important. I know right now we're in a political, I wouldn't call it a war, but there are some dynamics between the city and the state. They've gotten a lot better more recently. But I think we have a long way to go. But in order for our state to be the best state in the country, I think we need leaders to step up and just kind of say, let's take away the differences that we have politically, and let's just focus on Tennesseans. Let's focus on Nashvillians. Let's focus on people in the Middle Tennessee region so that we can have the best outcomes for the people that live here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. What would you say as it relates to, you mentioned, you didn't use the word token, but it was that when you're talking about boards and just being really intentional about what you say yes to, as a local here and as a leader in the community that owns a business. I know I've been in countless conversations about, sometimes Black leaders feeling like that because they find themselves being the only one, and they kind of question, like, why was I invited to this table? Kind of what's my role? Or maybe they've been at the table but not seeing the change that they want to see. Like, what would you say to Black leaders who are in Nashville about their role in helping to advance the city, grow the city, be a part of the story of how Nashville is growing and changing?
Well, I mean, that's a loaded question. So let me start by saying that I'm 40 years old and I have been the first several times, which is not something to be proud of, right? You think about 1999 when Mr. Gentry and Ms. Tucker were elected countywide. They were the first two African Americans in Nashville to be elected to the Metro Council as at-large. Like, that was, I remember 1999 like it was yesterday, But I know that's like decades ago, but still, like, so when people talk about how progressive Nashville has been, it really hasn't been that progressive, but it's had all the right tools to make it a great city, an international city that it is today. So when you invite people to the table or they feel tokenized, don't feel like a token. Like, I don't let anybody diminish me to make me feel like I'm something that I'm not. I know where I can add value. Like, if I've been successful at anything, what I've been successful at is saying, I know I can do this. And if I don't think I can do it, I'm not going to do it. But there are times where I've thought that I could really do some things before, and I've been successful at it, but it took some time. So my point is, you cannot be everything to everybody. Like, stay in your lane. Like, it doesn't mean that just because, like, this is an example.
I have so many questions.
I read this article when I was working on my doctorate at Vanderbilt, and it was called, "I'm Not Mopping the Floor, I'm Putting a Man on the Moon." And it talked about JFK and how he worked with NASA to put a man on the moon. And it took a long time because they wanted to be America to be the first to put someone on the moon. So everybody from the person who was mopping the floors to the ladies who were stitching the uniforms, also the socks that they were wearing were manufactured in Nashville. Believe it or not, that's another Nashville fact. But, like, it's all about perspective. Everybody plays a part in getting a man on the moon in this article. The same thing about the guy who was a bricklayer. Say, what are you doing? You laying bricks? No, I'm building a cathedral. So, like, if you reframe and actually focus on what you're designed to do, what God gave you, your God-given ability to do while you were placed on this earth, you go and do it to the best of your ability. And don't worry about anything else. Like, the tokenism thing is something that's going to pop up everywhere. I think that you get more by having diverse people there. Intersectionality is very important. I know you, but I know that you're more than just a CEO. I know that you were raised in the church. I know you're a female. I know you're a sister. It's a lot of things that make you who you are, and you bring that to the table. And when we start excluding people from the table and saying, we don't need that voice, we're missing out on a lot of other things that made you who you were and things that you care about. So I would say to the leaders, stay the course, do the best work that you can do, because people are watching. Like, I've had to be the first one to lead a lot of roles and jobs, but I knew that if I'm the first Black person, the youngest Black person, the youngest male, or the only male to do it, if I screwed it up, that means that people after me will not have an opportunity. So I would always take those opportunities as a blessing for me to get in, do what I can. And then once you get it fixed or get it to the place where you can have a good succession plan, get out.
Yeah.
And then go on to the next thing.
I love that. So you mentioned focusing on your lane. How did you figure out what your lane is? Because I know you've heard the word. We're in same age group. So older millennials, oh, I'm a multi-hyphenate, or I, have all these interests. And sometimes it can, especially from a leadership positioning standpoint, you may not feel like it's confusing, like the person that feels like they're the multi-hyphenate, but what you're projecting is confusion because it's like you're in 10 lanes. How did you find yours, and what advice would you give to the multi-hyphenate that's passionate about a lot of things?
Okay, so I was an undecided major. So full academic ride, Tennessee State, and I had no clue what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I just took the general courses, and one day I was recruited to go in health sciences and speech pathology, and I really wanted to do it. I thought that I'd be a clinician, and I thought I'd be good at it. So we had this one day lobby on the Hill, and that was the first time I've been to the state capitol, and I just fell in love with the environment. I saw the legislators walking in and out of the committee rooms. I saw the lobbyists walking up and down the hallways, and I saw how a bill was becoming a law. And at that moment, I decided, you know what? I like health policy, and I love health policy to this day, but I really want to be a policy person. So I like health policy just as much as I like education policy. I like transportation and transit policy just as much as I like those other two. So I'm a policy guy. Mm-hmm. So I know that I can go in and focus on anything that's related to government and policy. That's why I got a master's in public administration, and I use my MPA every single day. But then when the state turned and there were no jobs, I decided to go to law school. So that only added more value on top of what I want to do with policy, and it allowed me to do things. So get done with all that work, and then I'm like, I still want to do things in education. So that's why I went back and got a doctorate of education. So really, I know that I'm good at certain things. I know I'm good at policy, but I try to pick three things that I really care about. I do like healthcare policy. I do like education policy. And I also like mentoring people who come from communities where I came from, who may not see the potential that they have because they hadn't been exposed to it. Exposure is everything. So what I would say is, you can be interested in a million things, narrow it down to three. Three things. You can only be great at 3 out of 10 things. You cannot be an expert at a lot of things. Going to law school, you're trained to learn about whatever the topic is, and then you become an expert, but that takes a little time. But the law touches everything. So, property law and contracts come together because you can't talk about property without talking about the sale of property. So you have to understand things like that. Constitutional law touches everything. So torts touches everything. So basically, you learn how to do things based on your educational background, but don't go out trying to be everything. I've heard people say, can you do this? Yes, I can do this. I can do that too. It makes you come off as an opportunist. So just focus on those three things and be known for it. Dive into it, research it. It takes, I don't know the quote, you probably know it. How many hours does it take you to become an expert? Is it like studying something?
10,000 hours.
10,000 hours. So you don't have 10,000 hours for 100 subjects.
Things, right.
Right. So that's what I would say. Really focus on that.
That's good. You mentioned branding or being known. And so that made me think about branding. And it's true also for the purpose of retention, like memory retention. Like people, there's a reason why pastors have 3 points, Baptist pastors anyway,
right,
have 3 points, right? Because there's something to like the brain actually remembering. Mm-hmm. And so when it comes to like centering that expertise and positioning yourself in those 3 lanes, like that is such great advice. Okay.
Can I say one thing?
Please.
You said branding. Another piece of advice I would give young people is this right here. Do exactly what you said you were going to do, because your reputation matters. Mm-hmm. If you say I'm gonna do something and you don't do it or you don't deliver, that's gonna harm you. So like, be known in the community, be known at work as someone who gets assigned a task and they follow it through to completion. That's probably the most important thing I can say. If you don't have that, that's just, basic. If you can't do that, it's gonna hurt your career.
Yeah, I love that. Follow up, follow through, and finish.
Absolutely. Those 3 things.
Those 3 F's. Get them done. I love that. You alluded to, in your earlier comments when we were starting the conversation, leadership mistakes. And so I'm curious, what would you say has been one of your doesn't have to be your biggest, but maybe that comes to mind, something that was something that you felt was right in the moment, and then it came back around and you're like, I maybe could have done that a little bit differently.
I could lead a whole podcast on this one. I would say this would be the main thing. I like things done a certain way, but you have to let people on your team figure it out for themselves. So when things are not complete, and if it falls under my umbrella, what I like to do is say, okay, you done enough, I got it. Mm-hmm. I will take it back and I'll do it myself. But I had to learn as a leader, you cannot do that because number one, it's too much for you. And number two, you're taking away responsibility from the person that's supposed to be doing work that reports to you. And that's just not something that's sustainable. And it's really unfair to the people because they don't really understand their role or responsibility if they can't complete tasks. So I was too caught up in making sure that my team was perfect. I got to make sure that, particularly first time generation having this job, first time having something, first time leading this role, sometimes you're under so much pressure to perform that you're going to do it by any means necessary. And that's also harmed me, health-wise too, taking on too much. Mm-hmm. And not giving people the opportunity to thrive. And I got past that a long time ago, but that was an early mistake that I made in my leadership journey.
Yeah. Yeah. What are you looking forward to in your leadership journey as your career in leadership moves forward?
Well, I'm so blessed to have this role in Leadership Tennessee because I get to see so much. I get to travel all 95 counties. I get to get a under the hood look or behind the scenes look and the good, the bad, the ugly of the state. But I'm most interested in seeing like the bad and the ugly because I'm one of those people who feels like I can solve problems. Anything can be solved if you have the right minds, you have some assets to help solve it, and hard workers. But I love that piece. I'm looking forward to, right now, I love the exposure of seeing how leaders can come together from different backgrounds and learn together, to be vulnerable, to say, I want to focus on this issue. Like for Leadership Tennessee specifically, we don't want to be last on any list of all the states. Yeah. So that gives us broad, like we have a broad base of things we can focus on, because if Tennessee is known as the #1 state for domestic violence against women, that's bad. We want to be known for best for literacy, best for jobs, educational attainment. Like it's a whole list of things that we can always do better. So it's not that we're a horrible state, because Tennessee is a great place. Every state has work to do. Every county has work to do. Every city has work to do. So being able to expose leaders to that is just so fascinating. And I love that. I've been in this role for about 3.5 years, and I enjoy the work. But how I look at future opportunities is, I'm all in. When I'm in a job, I'm 100% in. Yeah. I don't go looking for opportunities or jobs. Everything came to me, just like this role. I was in the role of my life at Vanderbilt University. I really thought I'd retire from there. I love doing the work. But this role came. I really enjoyed Leadership Tennessee, my experience when I went through the program. And when it came to me, I wasn't initially interested in it. I was like, I can do that when I'm like 60. I want to be doing this right now. And then I had some more thinking about it. And I said, you know what, that would be fascinating. And I've enjoyed every single day of it. So my leadership journey will just be a continuation of this, because leadership is something that I do, something that I love. It's something that I will always continue to care about, and also pour into others who need to become better leaders, because you're foolish if you think you're the #1 leader. Everybody can learn something. I think I heard you say before, there's only one room, right? Room for improvement.
Oh, look at you. See? Okay. You threw my daddy's quote in there.
I did.
That's
because
his
it meant so much to me when I heard you say that. I was like, you know what? There's only one room. And it's room for improvement. Yeah. I mischaracterized it.
He would tell us the biggest room in our house is the room for improvement.
That's it.
I can say that. My 2 older brothers can say that. He's like, the biggest room in our house, the room for improvement.
Absolutely.
Like Daddy always.
And he's impacted me by you sharing this story.
Yeah.
And I use that, a similar statement, because that's what happens with leaders, particularly high executive leaders. they have a lot of things they're responsible for. It's stressful sometimes, but then when they go through a program like the one that I'm fortunate enough to lead right now, they get to see things from a different angle.
I love that.
They get to cut off their phone and their email and really focus on learning something in an area they don't know much about. Because even if they know something about the area, they're going to learn more by when we pull the experts in.
Yeah, that is so good. And I was reflecting back as you were talking about that on before I started Career Thrivers, I spent 12 years at Pfizer as a sales and marketing leader, and just the investment, every time there was an opportunity to do a program, go to a conference, like get in the room with other leaders across different industries and just be able to learn in that way. I'm like, yes, sign me up for that.
Absolutely.
So thank you for the work that you do with Leadership Tennessee.
I appreciate it.
Awesome. So as we wrap up here, my last question for you, what is one piece of advice that you would tell leaders on how to thrive in their life and in their leadership?
I would say always remember what's most important, which is your family. Family is so important that oftentimes we get sidetracked by work, but don't forget about your family. Take care of yourself and also exercise your faith.
I love it. All right. Thank you so much for joining us, Alfred.
Thank you. I appreciate you, Brittany.
Sweet.